piracy. It's an issue we all kind of have to deal with in the tech world. And the biggest thing about piracy is that, especially on the PC front, not as much on the console front, because most people who use consoles aren't really that big on, homebrewing everything, or I don't even know. I'm pretty sure, I know for a fact that there's like an Xbox homebrew community, and the only thing they do is piracy. Like, that's like the worst homebrew community invented by mankind. All they do on this, like, I think it's Xbox One, and all they do is pirate games. But anyway, the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues in the PC world is piracy, and it's incredibly normalized because people talk about piracy all the time. There's always passing jokes about it, and it is obviously a felony in most nations. Unless you live in like Sweden or something, which is where they run the Pirate Bay and all these things. The Pirate Bay is blocked in many nations, and many ISPs block it. There's many reasons for it because it's illegal. But I hate to sit here and white knight people about, oh, piracy is bad. It's because anyone can sit here and state the law and tell you why, oh, look at you, you're just being so bad by doing all this piracy stuff. But I would actually have some real content, some real point to make if I explained the reason why there is piracy, why it's bad, and why, specifically, the reason we have piracy in the first place is because of Microsoft and because of the games industry's specific choices and because of other factors. So, first point I need to make is explain why piracy is bad in a concept. Now, everybody, the most basic boilerplate, oh, piracy bad definition is, oh, the developers spent a long time making that video game, and you're just like, you're getting it for free. You're not supporting the developer. Well, first of all, I see that point as quite effective. But first of all, I'm not trying to support piracy. I'm just proving this point like a little wrong, so then I can make my point on why piracy is actually bad. First of all, game developers or whatever, I mean, gaming is like the biggest community of piracy. It's always pirating games, and computer software, especially Adobe Creative Suite, like they don't even care about it being pirated. But anyway, the biggest, it's like WinRAR. WinRAR is free. When they say it costs money, but people just use it for free. Technically, that's illegal. But anyway, in the video game industry and these things, people do pirate. So anyway, when you make a video game, obviously it takes an incredible amount of money. Normally, well, with most video games that ever hit it big to any level, it normally takes some kind of budget. It takes some kind of team. And I hate it when people have this illusion that, oh, it doesn't take a big team to make a successful video game. Here's a fun one. People think Undertale is made by one person, Toby Fox. That's not true at all. Then people say, oh, it was made by two people, Toby Fox and Temmie Chang. No, it was a team of 10 people. The 10 developers are credited in the game. The 10 developers there's an entire, they even have like their own little dog icons, if I remember well. So don't have this illusion that, games can just be like one guy making it and it takes a lot of work. It does take a lot of work. I'm not a game developer myself. It's just making the assumption based on the fact that games have insane budgets. But anyway, games have these insane budgets, and then they have to make, well, most AAA ones and smaller ones as well, and they make the money back. And you notice that as games have higher and higher budgets, they crack down more and more on piracy, unless it's Valve. And that's because Valve has a very interesting approach to piracy. But the argument people make against piracy is like, oh, well, these people worked, they put all this money in, and now, like, they're just going to, you're just going to download their game for free on some shady website, and you're going to suddenly, just all that hard work, you're not even going to pay them. Well, first of all, an incredible amount of developers make video games and give them away for no money. Second of all, an incredible amount of developers don't care about piracy, or they have a very, very different approach to it. Everybody points to Valve, obviously, because they have the whole, well, Steam has DRM, and there's a basic DRM, but it's super easy to get around, and pretty much every single Steam game ever made is instantly cracked, apart from the online services. That's just, you can't get around that. But Steam can be easily emulated, and you can easily get around all Steam DRM. The DRMs that are problematic are those that are included in video games that have a DRM in the actual video game. barring the Steam one that just basically verifies the files. Oh yeah, this is legit. You bought it, and boom. But Steam is very light DRM, and because of this, it doesn't have a really big performance impact besides just the performance impact of Steam running by itself, and the impact of it like running this DRM, which is nothing basically. It's not always online. You can use Steam offline, but Valve's approach has always been, oh, well, piracy, just let it happen. All you got to do is get around the system in creative ways and in ways that actually, entice the player to pay for the game. Just get around the piracy. Make a better service. Get around it. So Steam, the reason why pirate games off Steam is because they want them for free. But then you realize that Steam tightly integrates games into your entire, system. If I have even a single player game, maybe there's like workshop content. Can't get that on. You can't get that on, a pirated copy of a game. You have to have Steam. You have to have that linked. It's far more convenient to do things via Steam. It offers a generally, and because Steam is a service, it's run. It means that they can verify payments and they can verify these things, making piracy completely dumb. So that's the correct answer to piracy is good. No, piracy is bad. Don't tell them that developers they need money, because that is true. That is a true point. But there's just as much proof on the other side, and it's much more effective to say, well, piracy is bad because generally the entire concept of video games when it comes to what they're turning into, which is more and more services, so things like the Steam Workshop, the concept itself is unpiratable. You can't pirate a Steam Workshop. You can't do that kind of things. But this is just a small point. I'll get to my second point, which is why piracy was really caused by Microsoft when it comes to the PC software world. Things like, Adobe Creative Suite piracy. I remember this very well. The Adobe Creative Suite 2020 came out, and I think like a good day before the conference, or even like a few days after the conference, when they show off all the fancy new stuff, instantly the cracks come up on all the Creative Suite applications. I never pirated themselves because I never really used Adobe products beyond like the 7-day free trial of Premiere that I tried out and I didn't like it because Premiere was a buggy mess. Same for After Effects, just 7-day free trials. They're generally horrible products, really, in my verdict. I would never use a kind of pirated software for making YouTube videos. That sounds like you can call me out on that. That sounds like something I could be, ostracized for, and so I don't do it. But the reason we see all this piracy of this software is really because, and of course, being me, I need to plug the free open source software. But it really is that. If it wasn't for the fact that Microsoft, obviously, they made Windows, and Windows was first just an extension for DOS, but then eventually they made DOS really big, and then they made Windows really big, Windows XP, and Windows 90, 95, and 98 really hit it. They were really the turning points. And there was the whole browser debacle that eventually turned into the antitrust lawsuits against Microsoft. And all of these are just going to prove that Microsoft was a horrible company. We all know about the Triple E strategy. Not Triple E as in the city in Libya, Triple E. So the embrace, extend, extinguish strategy. And they're still up to it, apparently. I mean, Windows subsystem for Linux, all that is just them trying to extinguish Linux. I personally will not let it happen. I wouldn't let it happen. I don't have any power in the Linux world. I don't have any. But I would never ever, I don't think I could deal with a world where Microsoft has extended Linux to a level where people don't even think of using the stock kernel. They use the Microsoft modded kernel for WSL. Windows is a horrible product. It is a horrible product. But Microsoft, as I said, did a bunch of shady things in the 90s. They had the whole Triple E strategy. They had all this stuff. The biggest one was obviously web browsers. That was just the biggest. Everybody points to the web browser example. They extended the protocol, and they made it. They made Microsoft and Internet Explorer and such. But really, it's not that big of a deal. It is big of a deal. It's web browsers, but Microsoft did it to tons of things. And one of the things they really did it to was operating systems. Not in terms of, they created DOS themselves, and pretty much everything was created themselves, but they did, take a bunch of things. But I'm not getting into that. I'm getting into the fact that the reason why we actually have all this piracy is because Microsoft had Windows, and Windows was propagated throughout the years to all the children, all the people in the world, and Windows kind of became that operating system that everybody has. It has the most market share in the desktop world. Now, GNU/Linux would have probably never been a thing if it wasn't for it being a fantastic piece of code. It's like an incredibly disadvantaged piece of software that only really got so far and now basically rules the world. Every single smartphone, every single server, all that, it's all Linux because it's just very excellent, it's very efficient, it's very fast, it's very well made generally. Well, the Linux kernel is kind of getting bloated recently, but it's good. It's good is my point. But the issue really was the fact that by all projections, if it wasn't for Microsoft doing all the shady things it did and selling Windows as this product that people just started to develop for because it just snowballed into this thing, and then if it wasn't for this, then we would have had a world full of free software. Not as in money, but as in liberty. But most free software is also free. And to people who make the argument, software should cost money. Obviously, I'll always advocate for liberty of software. I'm perfectly fine with paying for a piece of software if it's a piece of libre software, if it's a piece of software that respects my freedom. But I just can't understand people who make the argument, the free market, people should, charge for software and they should, make software. The thing is, the free market is about that. It's about freedom. And so I have the freedom to write a piece of software and give it away for free. It's the superior piece of software, and people will start using that over the other one because it has a superior price and a superior. It's like these economy cucks don't understand the concept that you can make a product of higher quality and you can also lower the price at the same time, and you can basically have a superior. That's what Linux is. That's what GNU/Linux is. And do you think people in the server space use Windows or Microsoft Azure? That's literally the worst thing to ever happen to Linux. Microsoft Azure. Don't start saying things, thanks to Azure we have this. Shut up. Microsoft is all just going to extinguish everything by extending it. Anyway, so as I was saying, that's all GNU/Linux is literally just superior in every prospect. I'm just going to say on the server, I'm not even going to get into the desktop space, but on the server, it is superior, and it is also free. Well, Red Hat costs money, but that's just for support, and you can choose to write your own distribution, and choose to write your own thing. And I really just can't understand why people would say, paid software is just superior, because it doesn't have to be. And it's this logic. Let's take a look at the biggest example, probably the epiphany of all free software. It's either OBS or Blender, because everyone uses OBS or Blender or Audacity. These pieces of software are by no means, maybe Audacity is, but OBS and Blender are by no means not complex or not featureful. Blender is the most insanely, if anything, I'd even call it bloated. That's how efficient. That's how, quote unquote, how normies would define it. They would say, that's professional piece of software. Blender is incredibly professional. It is under the GNU public license, I think version 2, and it's an amazing piece of software, and it's just generally excellent. It's literally beating every single 3D modeling software in everything. It performs better. It even performs better on Linux. It's written just generally better. It, if anything, is far less, even though it is bloated, it is far less bloated. It's bloated in terms of the UI. The UI is it's very non-orthodox, but in many ways, it is a superior product, and it is a substitute good. It is a substitute good to literally every single other 3D modeling software. There's very, very, very few people who go out there and genuinely say, I'm going to use Maya. They only use Maya because their work or their school asked them for it. And isn't that just a rebuttal against Blender? Well, no. Because a piece of software shouldn't be judged based off the fact that, people use it or people don't use it. It should be judged based off the documentation, based off how good it is, how many features it has, how many features that it has are useful, and just generally how how well it performs, and if it does what it needs to do. So that's like 2 points, but I crammed it, well, I extended it to like 3 minutes. Blender is an excellent piece of software, and I've talked about it on the channel once. And I only ever used it a little. I've used pretty much every single feature in Blender at least once, but like for something just barely. I'm no seasoned Blender expert, is my point. But I did experience Blender, and I gotta say, I've also used other professional 3D software. Cause I'm not a 3D modeler, but to try them out, to compare them, because I like making my videos with some kind of verdict. Like for example, DaVinci Resolve. I've used Premiere in the past, like I said before, and I've used other pieces of software that compare to the other. I've used Audition. I've used that was in the Adobe free trial. I used After Effects compared to Resolve for the 7-day free trial again. What was it? I used many competitors that just use videos because I want to see, well, how does this compare to the competition? That's why in something like the GIMP video, I even say, GIMP is good, but like it doesn't I still get why you use Photoshop because it's generally a superior product, but unless you value freedom, of course. Because I tried out Photoshop for that video. But after using Maya and after using Blender, you notice oh my god, this is literally like not the same thing in terms of UI, but I can see myself having the same kind of workflow, well, not the same kind of, the same kind of efficiency in both of these pieces of software, if not being better in, Blender. But my point, relating back to piracy could have been easily avoided if only there was more software like Blender and other great pieces of open source software. I plan to make a Just Use video about it, but I still haven't found a single person that uses it, and I am definitely not an animator, because I'm talking about OpenToons. And OpenToons was actually one of the rare cases when a proprietary piece of software was open sourced. And that's insane. Think of all the benefits there are from all the source code from OpenToons. But besides that, and of course it being, GPL, so you can realistically make a movie, not only in Blender, but in OpenToons as well, an animated movie, in completely free software. I literally never thought that could have been possible, but OpenToons proved me wrong when I got open sourced. I say open sourced. I guess the correct term would be liberated, or I don't know, some funny Richard Stallman word. But relating back to piracy, if only there was more software like OpenToons, which is what was supposed to happen in my opinion. If only Microsoft didn't do all their anti-competitive things they did. That's Windows would have died like it should, being a terrible operating system, terrible file system, terrible. Windows should have died a long time ago, and we would have had GNU/Linux, and there would have been this push, and Microsoft wouldn't have been there to push proprietary software, and there would have been just like this euphoria, this amazing, cavalcade of free and open source. So we have it really good these days. I mean, we have Blender, like I said before, Krita is excellent. I mean, I'm basically just listing out my Just Use series, but that's not the point of this video. My point is that, especially when talking about software piracy in terms of productivity software, so software that actually does something, mostly creative software, but other applications too, piracy could have been easily avoided if only we had more free software, if only there was a more push to free software. And when I say free, I mean Libre, but at the same time, most free software is also free. And once that code is out, the thing is, people have this concept that, free software may be there, but it's not going to last forever. The entire point, once we have all of that free software, once we have everything we need, once we've made, the real big hole in Linux at the moment is CAD, computer-aided design, computer-assisted design, the design technology, all that engineering stuff. That's the real missing part in Linux. And that's really the big issue at the moment. If only we got that, and then everything would literally be perfect. We had professional software for video editing. That's another thing. We need professional video editing software, and Olive is getting there. Olive is a great piece. I plan on making a video on Olive, actually, because I've made DaVinci Resolve, and I still use DaVinci Resolve, sadly. I kind of have to use it because it's literally the only thing that supports the kind of effects and things that I need to do, because at the moment there's no good FOSS replacement, but soon, I hope, Olive is going to replace it, because Olive is a free and open source video editor, non-linear video. In fact, most of my videos, this one you're watching right now is being edited in Olive, because like loads of these videos are just like a clip and like just me talking. It's not that much editing. For anything complex, I use Resolve, like, I don't know, animations, quote unquote animations, like just zooming in picture of the OBS logo. But Olive is getting there. The interpolation in Olive is excellent. The performance in Olive is excellent. All we really need for video editors that are free and open source is better support for Linux, for Windows. Better support for Windows. Because we need to lure people in. People have this like, oh, free and open source for Windows, oh, that's disgusting. But the truth is, in my opinion, we have to lure people in. That's how I got into Linux. I was lured in by like Blender and Audacity and all these things. Like, oh, I already use these programs, why not just switch to Linux? Because like nothing's going to change because I use all these programs. Of course, many things did change, but it was generally for the better. And GNU/Linux is a better operating system. I've said that like 10 times in this thing. But piracy could have been avoided if only we had better software. So now I think, what was the third point I was going to make? I think it was something about how piracy can be avoided, or why piracy is bad. Okay. So I said before that piracy is bad because you might as well pay. You pay for a service. Gaming specifically is turning, I refer to gaming. I was talking about gaming before, but gaming refers to, gaming is becoming more and more of a service in terms of, Steam and all these things, whatever the hell they're making these days, Epic Games Store, I don't even know what that is. All these things they're making, and gaming is becoming more of a service. In terms of software, my point against piracy is the fact that all that software, it's not Libre. And more specifically, it most likely spies on you. Most likely, I understand piracy, and the biggest point against piracy, in my opinion, is really security. Because, I said before, most software all software you pirate. I don't think anybody goes out there and pirates Ardor. That'd be hilarious. Ardor cracked version. Somebody cracks Ardor. Anyway, building it from source for Windows. That's hilarious. But anyway, makes some Ardor binaries, releasing them illegally. That's legal to release binaries as a software, because that's prohibited under the license if the software is charged for. But anyway, imagine if there was, I don't know, not imagine, it is really like this. All proprietary software, all software you crack is proprietary software. And all that proprietary software, most likely, if it's any kind of popular piece of software, it most likely spies on you, ignoring the fact that most of this software is probably bloated and quite inefficient and just awful generally. I don't know, something like Adobe Premiere Pro, which I despise. Yeah, people love it. It's like this thing people feel chained to. Oh, Adobe. Oh, Adobe. If only you spent like a good, I don't know, year maybe like a month, really, transitioning to a different video editor like Resolve or something. Then maybe we wouldn't really have this issue of Adobe, oh no, Adobe, no. Because their software is this legacy, bloated piece of garbage collection of and there's the advertising cloud. This is how bloated Adobe is. The actual collection of programs is bloated. There's like a million different Adobe programs and they do the same thing. They made an effects engine and a editing engine, so Premiere Pro and After Effects, into two separate programs. Now, yes, it takes like a different rendering engine to do effects than it does for video editing. It's less efficient to use the same one. But at the same time, you could have just made, a less bloated program in general, because Premiere, so the idea is like, fragmentation. You separate things and, you make them more efficient because they're separated, right? But the thing is, if your software in the first place is inefficient, what's actually the point? Premiere Pro is like 7 gigabytes? I don't know, big, bloated is my point. DaVinci Resolve includes in it a suite of effects, an effects suite, so that'd be Fusion. It has all the editing stuff. It has Audition built in, basically. It's called Fairlight, ironically, light. Well, it's actually dealing with sound, and it's still less than Premiere Pro, which doesn't include any of that besides the basic video editing function. Premiere Pro, basically, put as simply as possible, it's complete boomer software. Don't use it. Use Resolve if you really need that professional features. If you're some like overestimated person who's like, oh, I need Premiere Pro for like my gameplay, just use Olive. Olive is the exact same as Premiere Pro. It literally looks the same. It doesn't have the same horrible putrid color scheme of purple. Hate it when programs. I hate purple. I just really dislike the color purple. Just really don't like it. Like it looks kind of cool sometimes in like a painting or something, but like for my software, no purple, please. But anyway, yeah, that's the video. That's the title of the video. I hate purple. But back to piracy. People pirate Premiere Pro all the time. People pirate Adobe stuff all the time. If all of that was free and open source, people wouldn't pirate it, would they? And the thing is, people say, oh, that's unrealistic, but we already have it. We already have it. Don't be unrealistic. Don't say it's unrealistic. We already have the kind of software that are playing. I mean, who in their right mind, in the majority of people, uses like XSplit over OBS or a fork of OBS? No one. That's right, no one. Like 2 streamers. I don't know. The only one I could think of is like Buying Sauce Joel. They use XSplit, but like everything they do in XSplit can just be a plugin in OBS. OBS, everybody uses OBS. That's literally replaced every streaming software ever invented. OBS completely replaced them. Same thing would have happened to every single piece of software that you pirate if only Microsoft had a meddle with things. So anyway, back to the point I was making about why piracy was bad, because this video is more convoluted than like the plot of Doctor Who, like going back in time and changing points. So Doctor Who advocates for free and open source software. That's excellent. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Piracy is really bad because in the end you're avoiding paying for something, right? So that's like, oh, that's positive because like, but most of the time, all of that malicious functionality that is in the proprietary pieces of software is often, you find it in pirated versions, they often come with viruses. And even if they're perfectly clean, you're still going to be selling your data to them. Let's be honest. Adobe, Microsoft, Google, they all know you pirate all of their stuff. They all know it. Don't act like they don't act like they're like completely oblivious. They all know. And because of this, Google is smart. Google at least is smart to the point where they're like, let's just make everything we make free. So then, unless of course it's a service like cloud sharing, like cloud hosting and stuff, let's make everything we make free. So then people will just, not have to deal with paying for it, and we'll just steal their personal data. Because that's what all these companies do. Adobe, Microsoft, Google, all they do is spy on you. That's literally all they do. You think, oh, I'm getting around this by cracking the software. And like, yo, look at me. I'm like not using an account, just cracking the software. They're still spying on you. And you can't hard code that out because most of this Adobe software completely refuses to function. Even the pirated ones, if I believe so, refuses to function if it doesn't connect to the special Adobe server. I'm pretty sure Adobe even lets pirated pieces of software connect to their servers. I'm not sure about that, but probably that's not true. But I know for a fact that they do transmit data back. And Microsoft software, are you even kidding me? Windows 10, if you pirate that, well, first of all, you can download it for free at the Microsoft website, which they consider, oh, you're only installing it for free, but you gotta pay to use it. But they know you don't pay. They know that you don't pay for it. And so they cram the thing full of ads, and they cram the thing full of spyware, and they cram the thing full of personal data mining stuff that will just completely ruin the point of paying for it in the first place. It's a gold mine, this. Just cram everything full of spyware, cram everything full of adware, and boom, you've got, like, that's a prime example is Windows 10. Games is different because games can't really get away with that unless it's anti-cheat. I'm sure there are some, like Unity games. I think Unity has, like, telemetry in it. There was, like, a controversy at some point where Unity had telemetry in it. But, like, besides that, you know what I'm talking about. Microsoft, all these, Adobe, they have all this telemetry in their software. By cracking it, they know you're cracking it. Google is smart to some extent, like I said before, because like things like Google Docs, that's all just a web app. It's free. They just spy on you directly and don't have that middle stage of you having to, not pay for it and feel like a hacker. And so basically, summarizing my points. Number 1. Piracy was caused by Microsoft. Well, the extent of piracy we have to date, the fact that it's normalized, was caused by Microsoft. because they promoted proprietary software, which eventually promoted all of this paid software. Point number 2. Piracy is bad because it basically just promotes this concept of downloading things for free and pretending to be, oh, look at me, I'm freed, I'm not going to pay anything, I'm such a thug. But in truth, you're still going to be paying with your personal data. You're still going, Microsoft gives away Windows 10 for free, quote unquote free, considers it piracy, and that spies on you. And point number 3, piracy in terms of, you can't defend piracy by just saying, oh, the developers, they gotta get money. That's a stupid defense. The correct defense is things like games, software, they're transferring to services. They're becoming services. And money being spent on those services is a constant thing that needs to flow. And so it makes sense to pay for pieces of software. Not that I would ever pay for any piece of software, since all the software I use is entirely free of charge. I don't do any piracy on my channel. Entirely free of charge. And most of it, not all of it, like DaVinci Resolve is not free and open source, but most of it is free and open source. So that was really convoluted and stupid. I hope you got some kind of point out of that and I didn't sound like a complete bumbling moron. I just need a video out now, and I just thought I'd make this rant because I've always wanted to. I've been like, this storm has been conjuring up in my mind, like, oh my god, it's all Microsoft's fault. Obviously, I don't blame Microsoft entirely, but that's like the biggest force towards pushing Windows and this agenda of proprietary software. And don't make, like I said, just if you have to take something from this video, take this. First of all, proprietary software is bad. It's always been bad, and it always will be bad. Second of all, software, you can't defend the idea of paying for software by saying paid software is always better, because you can release a piece of free software and there's no catches. There's never a catch. There are no catches. When it's a GPL licensed V3 or V2, whatever it may be, a GPL licensed piece of software, there's none of these catches. Free, and we're already there with OBS, we're already there with Blender, we're already there with OpenTunes, and eventually free and open source will dominate every industry. Every single industry will be free and open source in software. We need better CAD software, that's what we need. There's Blender CAD for it, but besides that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this Zoomer rant that made no sense and was probably stupid in the first place. Please, goodbye.